Hi, I'm Will. Okay, maybe I'm not Will. But this is What's Leaving and What's Left, a podcast about divorce. Why what's leaving and what's left? Well, maybe you're leaving and maybe you're left. Which is to say, this is a show about divorce. It isn't a how-to guide. It definitely isn't a substitute for legal representation or therapy, although we will plead with you, please look into both those things. It might be good to mention here that there's nothing here to be construed as legal or medical advice. What's leaving and what's left is real divorce stories of real people. The idea came to me when I realized how many men I knew were going through divorces that would never look for help as they deal with divorce, or that when help was offered, they would never accept it. And yet when they found themselves in a divorce, they wanted to talk to me about it. Interestingly enough, but maybe not surprisingly, their stories, and maybe yours, have a lot in common with each other. And while I can't claim to be an expert on divorce, relationships, psychology, anything, I think finding familiarity and common ground in some of these stories might be soothing and somewhat therapeutic. And maybe, at the very least, we can provide a parasocial group for people having trouble finding, or people having trouble even beginning to look for, help. Good day, happy weekend, if it is a weekend for you. This is Will, this is What's Leaving and What's Left, and we're chilling on a Sunday morning, bright and early with our guest, Anthony. Anthony, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Really good. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, man. Glad you're here. Anthony, now, I did screen this, but for our listeners, have you been divorced?
Yes.
Cool, you can stay. Now you've been divorced. How many times have you been divorced?
I've been divorced twice now.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. So first time around wasn't enough for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Third time coming. No,
Looking forward. Third time's the charm. So okay, that's a first for our show. Twice divorced. Now, Anthony, how old were you when you got married, and how old are you today?
So I was 33 when I got married,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm 44 now.
Okay, so you've had two marriages in the last 11 years.
Correct.
Okay, got it. So 33 when you got married. How long were you dating before you got married?
So we were dating for about a year.
Oh, okay. It was moved pretty fast.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the marriage lasted
5 years.
5 years. 5 years. And then, so you've been divorced. You got married at 33. You're 44. You've been divorced for 6 years.
Yeah.
So from that marriage.
From that marriage, yeah.
Okay, great. Now, Anthony, I'm gonna add like a little Bobo Jimmy World music clip where I say we're gonna start in the middle. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know if you get that musical
No.
reference, but I assure you it's killing with some of the listeners.
So perfect. Let's do it.
But let's start in the middle. I want you to tell me about the conversation that you and your first wife had where you decided that you wanted a divorce, or how that went down.
So how it went down has a little bit of backstory on it. But before we got married, I was friends. I went to school in college, and I actually made friends with a nice redhead.
Mm-hmm.
And she just is a friend. And that needs to be known so that it will make sense what happened.
Okay.
I got married, had a wonderful marriage from what I could see. I was working hard. We bought a house, we bought cars, we got everything. We had the traditional perfect marriage. No children though. We just me and my wife.
Was that by design?
Oh yeah, we didn't want any children. Yeah. And I was working 107 hours because she wanted me to work more and more and more and more every week, and she only gave me $700 allowance a month.
Wait, so were you the breadwinner? Was she the breadwinner?
I was the breadwinner.
Okay.
But she took
You
care
were
of
on allowance.
But I was on allowance.
Okay.
And then she works as well as a paralegal, and so she has her own income too. But I never thought to question any of it because we had everything we wanted, and I could do anything I wanted usually.
So your allowance wasn't like super restrictive. You had enough money to do the things you like to do.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you were going along with it.
Yeah, because you're paying for the rent, you're paying for the mortgage, you're paying for the car payments, pay the insurance and everything. And at the end, you had $700, then you put the money into the savings, and so that you were able to afford really good vacations. So I worked for an airline. We went to vacations 4 times a year. Went 2 weeks at the 5-star hotels. I was at the best of the best of the best.
That sounds pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, I traveled all around the world. So what happened was One day, I was working a lot of hours because we were saving up. We just bought a house, and she made a friend with a person named, I believe.
Oh, do we want to name?
No, not naming him.
Okay.
I was going to give them a pseudonym.
Okay, cool. I'm like, we don't want to dox your ex.
Yeah.
We don't want to dox
No.
whoever this person is. Maybe.
No. Troy. And
Troy's a good one. Okay.
yeah. And we had agreement that you're not supposed to have male friends without me knowing and being friends with them, and vice versa.
Mhm.
I can't have female friends in which she's supposed to know.
Mhm.
And this person named Troy planted the seed that I may be cheating on my wife. And then her best friend came up to her and said she saw me at a concert with a redhead.
Mm-hmm.
And this day was on a Friday, and I was working at the airline, and the airline records calls just like we have now. You can record the call and listen to the call.
Yeah.
So I showed her that I did not go anywhere. I was working,
Mhm.
and I was working from home. I actually worked from home, and my wife didn't believe me. And so we separated at that moment because
Oh.
she didn't want anything. She thought I was a cheater, and everything was. I have no clue how.
And that was that. There was no like, can you take a second? Did she give you a second thought? Did she give you a second
Yeah,
look?
she said, "Well, let's separate and see what happens."
And what happened?
And I'm like, "Okay." I said, and so she wanted to see other men,
Oh.
and I said, "Then I want to see other women." And I actually got a girlfriend within 3 weeks of the breakup to show that I'm someone who's very likable and wantable. And she didn't like that, but then she also had a boyfriend at that time as well. So it was kind of things. And the moment that it came up, there was about 2 months later, and she said, "We can't do this anymore. I filed for divorce." And she gave me the papers.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that seems like a natural conclusion if you guys are both seeing other people
Mm-hmm.
at the same time.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, people can make open marriages work, I think.
Mhm.
Somewhere they do, probably. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but it's possible.
Yeah.
I don't exclude the idea that it's possible, but typically, if you're both dating somebody new,
Yeah.
maybe you're on the outs. So, do you get the impression from when do you get the impression that she wanted to believe that you were cheating?
Yeah.
That she was looking for an excuse?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I believe that.
Yeah. And I'm not, the big thing that we try to avoid on the show is talking shit about our exes. But at the same time,
I love her.
what was your impression?
Yeah.
Not like, was she doing this?
Yeah.
Your impression is she was looking for a way out.
Yeah, and I believe it was due to the deception of the 2 lies that came in from
Sure.
her friends.
From Troy and then this other friend
Yeah.
who saw you at a concert.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you brought up that you were friends with a redhead.
Yeah. And
So was that the implication there that the redhead was the person you were seen with at the concert?
correct.
Interesting. So they said, I saw him here with this specific person that is his friend.
Yeah, they got the details correct.
Okay.
Because like the details are correct to say that I'm a cheater, not that I was a cheater. They planted that lie and had the right details set up in the right way
Right.
to plant
To make
that
it
seed.
really believable.
Correct. Yeah.
It's so weird. I mean, yeah. How do you feel about that to this day? Like, are you moved past? Are you?
Yeah, I moved past it, but if I've never felt all my life, you never go into marriage wanting to divorce. So first of all, you go into marriage because you're looking for a lifelong partner.
Mhm.
And so I loved her. She saved my life. She did a lot of good things for me, and I just don't know. The emotions that came out of it.
Mhm.
I've never hated anyone in my life before.
Mhm.
I've never felt hate. I never
Yeah.
felt jealousy. I've never felt any of those negative emotions in my life up
Yeah.
until that point.
Yeah.
And I hated Troy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really hated Troy.
I think that's we talk about this a little bit, and I would like to dive into that because I think I don't consider myself an angry person, but I'll tell you, divorce makes everybody find that there is anger inside you.
Mhm.
Whether you know how to deal with it, whether it's something you're actually in touch with, you get in touch with it through divorce one way or another, I think.
Mhm.
So feeling that hate, that anger, how did was that terrifying? How did you deal with your hate and your anger? Right?
Yeah, it was the good news is I'm not a violent person and I'm not an evil
Sure,
person.
sure.
So having that anger was just anger.
Mm-hmm.
But it did tear me apart. It broke it when the final papers came in. Like the girlfriend didn't last very long. I just wanted to show that I was
Desirable.
and that
Yeah.
that wasn't a narcissistic situation where I was under a leash or I was actually being manipulated to think that I'm not worth it or
Sure.
something. So I wanted to prove to myself I was still worth something.
Yeah.
But on November of that year of 2017, we finally got the final papers, and it broke my universe. I literally broke down, and I lost my job that day.
Oh, fuck.
I lost a friend that day, and it's like three things just happened all at the same time, just because of the negative energy I think just put out, and it just destroyed everything. And I actually was sitting at my desk, and I literally saw, whether it was real or in my mind, the universe crack like a windshield crack, and it was in the center of my room, and I could actually literally see it. So whatever happened, I had a psychosis break, and
Yeah.
it just crushed me. It was hard to recover from that.
I think the day that whichever party is getting served papers, that is where, that it doesn't matter if you're expecting it. It doesn't matter if you know you're getting divorced. It doesn't fucking matter. That day you discover that you are an angry person.
Mm-hmm.
It feels bad to be served legal paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
just in general. And when it's about divorce, doesn't matter. And I've seen this happen to friends where it's like, oh, they said we won't need to get a lawyer, everything will be fine. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get served.
Yeah.
Like, this is a legal process that starts with somebody getting served.
Yeah.
And so I have friends who are like, I don't need to lawyer up yet, and then they get served, and they call me and they go, Will, I'm losing my fucking mind. I can't believe he or she did me like this. I never saw it coming. And you hear this person who was so relaxed and so looking forward to the amicable dissolution of this marriage,
Mm-hmm.
finds out, like, I'm going to have feelings about this.
Yeah.
And it starts today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, okay. That did you guys litigate? Did you guys just cleanly sever?
Because of because I broke. I was like, I just give up, and I gave her everything, and said, have fun, enjoy your life. I gave her the house, gave her the cars, I gave her the savings, and I didn't realize at the time.
Listener, you can't see my eyes right now, but they're very large.
Yeah.
As Anthony says.
And I didn't realize. Remember, I told you I only had $700 allowance.
Yeah.
And I calculated how much money over a period of 5 years I made was over $1 million. And I was only making $700. And I know the house was only worth $275,000, which means that she had in her bank account set aside like $500,000 to $750,000. But I didn't realize at the time. I was devastated. It didn't occur to me until probably 6 months later after I agreed. And
then you got
the paper.
angry again, or what happened?
Oh my gosh, I get angry again, but there was nothing I could do about it. Like, I wasn't going to go out and get my revenge. I'm like, I've seen guys start again. I've seen things start again. I'm going to have a good job.
Sure.
The other job I got let go of, but I still I was working 2 jobs at the time. And I'm like, I could just still continue in this job, work my art and do stuff and just recover.
So art was a way for you to kind of work through the anger and the trauma of the divorce?
Yeah, and spirituality for sure.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, because, I mean, we've talked, and I know that you're not a drinker. A lot of people that come on, they have a sobriety journey that's related to the divorce, but were you sober during your marriage as well?
I've been sober. I actually didn't do anything up until 3 years ago.
Nice.
So I was sober through the entire thing. Didn't look to dissociate.
So it was art and spirituality.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm always curious about how people cope, whether through unhealthy means or healthy means, whether through addiction or through hobbies, which are addictive on their own, but in the good ways.
Yeah.
What kind of art do you do?
I do digital art. I'm a graphic designer, so I do digital art. I was working with AI before AI was AI. I was working with a lot of filters and stuff like that, creating for some really good realistic art that that you think that was painted on a canvas, but it was all digital.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're divorced now.
Mm-hmm.
6 months after the fact, you find more reasons to be angry. How long would you say it took before you were able to kind of wipe the slate clean before the. I mean, it's a hugely traumatic event. The emotions never really go away.
Yeah.
But when did you feel like you were really starting to move past it?
So after the 6-month period when I realized I lost everything, I just accepted it. And so when I accepted it, it was like, it's like, oh wow, that felt good. Like just let it go. You gave it to her as a gift. Goodbye, and broke free.
And you don't talk to this day, I'm assuming.
Oh, we talk up until like last year.
No way.
Yeah, we were talking. Funny story. I owe some money. I'm originally from Canada, living in San Diego. I owe some money to the bank in Canada. I haven't paid it because of COVID. And they called her up looking for collections. And she called me up thinking that I put a lien on the house. So she hasn't talked to me because of that.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, and what's Canada going to do?
Yeah,
they're going to send a Mountie down?
Come and get me.
I dare you.
They told her that.
I'm out of your jurisdiction, bro.
It's too much drama. If you tell them where I am and everything, they're going to know you're lying, and then you're going to put stuff in your stuff because you said you don't know where I'm at. You don't have things, but anyway, it's another story.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, let's fuck a bank.
Yeah,
I'll just leave it at that. Like, bank, yeah, okay, maybe whether or not Anthony owes you money, fuck you.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So you'd say about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you were kind of like, this happened. I gave her everything, and now it's time to look forward. And then you ended up. Did you date for a while, or did you meet this next?
Yep, I dated.
This next partner, long-term partner.
So
how did your single life go?
So in 2018, I was looking to get I ended up getting a job as a graphic designer for this one person. Made friends with her, and she was going through a divorce at the time. And when she divorced, I dated her because we had a kind of a trauma bond, maybe.
Sure.
But we had a like understanding, and we ended up liking each other, and everything was great. But it didn't work out long enough to become a marriage sign. But I also had a friend who I've been friends with for 14 years online, and she lived in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And she found out that I got divorced, and she started talking, and we started getting along, and everything was great and cool. We had an instant connection. Everything was great. And by 2019, October 2019, I flew to South Africa to see if it was a real connection or if it was an online fantasy.
Sure.
And it was a real connection. It was absolutely real. And so by February of 2020, I packed up and moved to South Africa.
Okay, so 2019, which part of 2019?
October, when I talked to her, was beginning about January 2019.
And then October 2019, you went out and met her, and then February, you fully moved overseas.
And got married to her, yeah.
And, like, nothing happened in the next 6 months on, like, a global level that would change anything, like, maybe around March of 2020, right? Like,
so we got married on March 13th, lucky number. And 2 weeks later, there was a global lockdown. Mm-hmm. So my visa, my marriage certificate, everything didn't go through in their government process, so I couldn't get a job. And it didn't matter to get a job because it was completely locked down. No one could get jobs.
Where are you going to go?
Yeah, you couldn't even go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And so I had...
What was it like? Can I ask? I mean, I know what lockdown orders were like here, but like in South Africa, was it similar? Was it more intense?
It was way more intense. So if you follow the news, South Africa was the quarantine country. No one was allowed in or out of South Africa. There was a no-fly zone over in South Africa because of it. Yeah. Emergency flights weren't even allowed to come in.
They went full World War Z on this.
Because that's where the new strains were coming out of. They weren't coming out of China. They were coming out of South Africa, which is owned by China. And the lockdown procedures are this: you had a curfew at 10. You're only allowed to leave the house to do groceries and essential services. But even essential services in South Africa weren't working because they're all government employees, and so they didn't work either. So it didn't matter what you did. It was called chaos. And if you've never worked, I lived in a town 3 hours west of Johannesburg, and if you've ever been to South Africa, you'll notice that every town has what's called a shanty town, built around it. And so you have a town of 1 million people or a city of 1 million people, but then you have 23 million people surrounding it in a shanty town situation. And so
a real clear kind of haves, have-nots kind of division.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it was absolutely terrifying because they would come in at night because there's no groceries, no food, no nothing, no money.
Right.
And they'd come in at night and they'd rob the interior of the cities. And that was, we had electric fences, we had guards, we had closed community within closed community. So even if you got through the first level of defense, you had another level of defense above that when we had 3 dogs, and they'd poison our dogs.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, that's way worse than I had it out here. My dogs were totally safe.
Yeah.
And I could walk them and not get pulled over. Okay, so now would you say that the lockdown orders affected the relationship, or were there things going on in the relationship that lockdown orders just brought out?
Well,
what happened?
Because of how this all worked out, she just got divorced from her husband.
Okay.
And so he couldn't get work either. And so they had a guest house and a main house, and we had the main house, and he needed a place to live, and she gave him the guest house.
This is awkward.
So the ex-husband lived in the guest house.
This is so awkward.
While I lived with his ex-wife, in the main house.
I am so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and because we had no work, we were going through all our savings, and essentially I can't explain it, but because I had no money, and she was paying for all the amenities at that moment, she couldn't pay for it. He came in, and he works for an insurance company, so he's certainly online. He ended up paying for the rent and paying for everything. So in order to exchange that, I had to make meals for the family, and it just got weird.
Yeah, that's so complicated. It feels bad to think about. Let's just say that it wasn't an ex-husband, that it was just like a roommate that you kind of had to entertain, that was also having to pay rent.
Yeah.
Pay your rent. That's weird.
Yeah.
I just don't want to revisit a time where I had roommates. I'd just rather not. I live with my girlfriend. If we had to get a roommate, it'd be fucking weird.
Yeah.
Now, let's make it one of our ex-wives, ex-husbands. That's okay. So that added a layer of complication. And how did that manifest, other than just being so fucking uncomfortable?
Well, I ended up making friends with him, which is okay.
Sure.
But because I have to make friends with him. I mean, I don't want conflict in this situation because we can't leave the house. We're in the house 24 hours, essentially. Essentially, we can't leave.
Yeah.
And we never had a chance. You know how they actually said the estimate. They said anyone who got married during lockdown, 97% of their marriages failed, because as a normal person, you go to work, you get 8 hours, you spend maybe 2 or 3 hours with your wife or spouse, and you get to slowly get to learn each other, get the tolerances. But when you're with them 24/7, the tolerance level drops completely because you're seeing everything all the time, and you can't get
under
away.
A microscope a bit.
You can't get away from it. And I mean, this ex was good.
Sure. Well, you would hope at least that was
all, because that's all we did. But it got weird because the ex-husband's in the next.
Yeah, man. So it's what, like lots of ball gags? Like, how do you keep it quiet? Like, that's
what we did.
That's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's got to be on so many levels, it's uncomfortable to just. I could not imagine.
Yeah, and we never got our honeymoon. We were supposed to go on our honeymoon.
It's weirder than having sex next door to your parents.
Yeah.
To have sex next door to your partner's ex.
Correct.
That's more weird.
Especially when you know what happened between them. And the reason why they broke up is because they weren't having sex at all.
Yeah, that's a common thread on a lot of our guests. And yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So, Anthony, once again, take me to the middle. Take me to, what was the conversation? How far in were you when you guys said, hey, this ain't it? Or was there a conversation?
Well, I never have that conversation because like I said, I get married for the purpose
staying in.
I don't get married to divorce. I get married. I look for compromise. I look for ways to help and ways to move to make this work. And we finally got to go on our. They raised the lockdown restrictions, and so now you're allowed to travel across to other towns and so forth. And I said, let's get our honeymoon. Let's do our honeymoon. And in October of that year, we finally got a chance to go to our honeymoon. And as we're in the hot tub, she says, "I'm leaving you."
Oh my God. That was that. We'll go on. Was there more discussion?
No, there was no discussion. She just got up. There was 2 beds in the place. She went and got her own room, and she said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving you." I'm like, she said, "You don't have a job. You don't have anything. You have nothing to offer."
Jesus Christ.
I'm like, it's COVID. What the heck are you talking about?
Nobody's got a job.
Right. Nobody does.
Nobody's got anything going for them.
Correct.
I had my credit cards frozen during COVID repeatedly.
Yeah.
You know, there was nobody financially benefiting from it except banks.
Correct.
You know, like
and bootleg alcohol sales.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so unless you're in those industries, you were kind of fucked.
Yeah.
So that's not a good reason to take it out on. Okay. So that sucks.
Yeah.
How long were you still together after she said that? Did you live together anymore?
I still lived. I tried. I'm like, baby, let's work on it after the honeymoon, like it never happened. We went back to the house, and I'm like, let's work on this. Let's work on this, okay? I'm like, this is COVID. The excuses that you're saying that are not working is not my fault.
Right. There are forces outside of everybody's control contributing to this, and consider that, and like, let's get through this and see. Yeah. Okay, continue. Sorry.
But of course, the uncomfortableness of having an ex-husband right next to us and everything. I'm sure that there was a lot to do with that. I'm sure that she was going through a lot. So I'm not putting on, like, I was not a bad person. I didn't do anything to provoke it. And I know that sounds narcissistic to some people saying, "Oh, you're perfect." I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't bad at all. I didn't.
You weren't a provocateur.
I didn't go after other people. I didn't.
Did you feel like during that marriage? I mean, you say that COVID put strain on all of it, and I get that. What was the dynamic like before she said, "I'm leaving you"? Was it a lot of arguing, or was it kind of stagnant Cold War
Cold War, yeah. So she said, "Come have coffee with me." I'm like, "Okay." So coffee. And she goes, "So let's have a talk about this. And I'm like, "Okay." Talk about it. And she gets up and she leaves.
Huh.
I'm like, "Okay." And I was sitting there for 2 hours because we're also supposed to go.
Yeah, right.
And like walk over, and she's on her computer playing a video game or something. I'm like, "Hey, can I play with you?" And she goes, "No, I want my alone time right now."
Huh.
And it was just, and that started around probably about August, that she couldn't handle.
Yeah.
Whatever she was.
So she'd say she wanted to talk about it, and if you were open to talking about it, she didn't want it to go any further. She had nothing to say.
Well, because it's a situation where she was looking for something wrong with me.
Okay.
And she couldn't find anything wrong with me. She had her feelings that there's something wrong.
You think she was trying to coax an argument out of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like I said, it sounds narcissistic to say that I was perfect. I wasn't. I mean, obviously I said the wrong things somewhere.
Sure.
And I did some wrong actions that affected this. But I think, just like everything else, she was justifying why she felt uncomfortable and why she didn't want to be in this relationship anymore. I mean, I'm international, so one of the things was she says, "I'm South African, you're Canadian, and we just don't mesh." But that was the first thing that actually attracted us, is that we had this difference, that we were so incredibly, curious on each other. And sharing each other's experiences and each other's stories and getting to know each other.
You guys are exotic to each other.
Right, yeah. And that was what she called me, the exotic one. She called, she used to show me off.
No U.S. American calls Canadians exotic.
I know.
But I guess in South Africa, you're a real rare bird.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm also, you might not tell by looking at me, but I'm also Ojibwe. So I'm full-blooded Indian. The only reason I have the tone of color skin I have now is because my grandpa married a pure-blooded German, and so that double dominant gene passed through the second generation.
No, I'm actually, I think a lot of us, if we go back far enough, there's some Native American.
Yeah. But I'm full status. So they And so she used to show me off to all her friends because Native American or Native Aboriginal
Yeah.
In South Africa is like, oh my God.
Really?
That's like, they're like, oh, I want that.
Huh.
Yeah, so it was like, I was like the prize trophy.
Nice. I mean, I can see that makes sense in South Africa, where so much of his colonizer,
Yeah.
energy. It's not the Aboriginal population as much as it is Dutch, German,
Right,
etc.
and I'm not black, so
Right.
it makes.
Thank you for sharing that with the
yeah.
listener in case they were confused.
Well, in South Africa, they still have post-apartheid. I mean, they still
Right.
call people black, coloreds, and whites.
Yeah.
And so I fall in what's called coloreds because I'm not full-blooded white.
That's so wild.
Mm-hmm.
And also fucked up.
Yeah.
Great job, South Africa. Okay, so she said, "I'm leaving you," and then you tried to work on it, and then so did you get served again? Was it
No,
another?
we went to the lawyer. We went to got a lawyer, and we did it together mutually, and I signed it because I'm like, I can't do this. I can't go through another.
You've done this before.
I've done this before, so I was like, I can't do the stretch out and everything. Like, if you don't want to be with me,
Yeah.
then you're not going to be with me. And then just before she was about to sign the divorce papers, she said she's pregnant. And we went to the doctor, and she's pregnant with twins.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And first person she talked to wasn't me. She ran to her ex-husband and told him everything. She didn't tell me first. She told him first.
Okay.
And that's when I knew it was over. I knew right away that she couldn't come talk to me about it.
I mean, I have to ask. Your twins?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did she had the twins?
No, she went straight to
The doctor?
and had an abortion, and that crushed me. I cried for probably a long time, and then even recently, a friend told me, he says, "You don't know what it is to have kids." I'm like, I have twins who my wife aborted.
Right.
What are you talking about? And I broke down.
Yeah. So at any point when you guys were married, did you discuss the possibility of having children?
We weren't going to have children.
Oh man.
One of the benefits of me at the time was that I actually was supposed to be infertile.
Oh.
But then something happened. I got myself rechecked when I came back to Canada after the divorce. I'm fully fertile now.
Huh.
So South Africa healed me. Woohoo, Africa ground.
Well, wow. So you both decided you didn't want children, but it still hurt to know that she terminated the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I even know when it happened. Like that, when it happened, I knew that was in coming back from the honeymoon. I said, let's work on it, and we made love.
Mm-hmm.
And we both, at that moment, she goes, I can feel us having a baby at this moment. And I'm like, I can feel it too. This is so weird. Like, it's almost like we felt this amazing mind connection.
I've heard stories like that.
Yeah. And that's when the conception happened.
That's when I was about to make a goof, and I'm like, we're talking about an abortion that is very emotional, and I don't want to make a goof about it, so I will refrain.
No worries.
That's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
When she told you, was she emotional about it?
Oh, she was screaming and crying and angry because she said, you're supposed to be infertile.
And we talked a little bit outside of the podcast, Anthony, about your history with spirituality and religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised evangelical, and only later in life, post-divorce, really came to be a pro-choice individual.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change the fact that, like, abortion's hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you support a woman's right to choose or not. You can be as supportive as you can. It doesn't mean it's not a hard choice.
Yeah.
And that people that's traumatic as well.
Yeah, I've had some traumatic times.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it. I was okay with the abortion. Like when she,
sure.
But
it hurt.
But it hurt. And like I had to agree to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I only agreed to it only based on the circumstances that happened from
Sure.
that October up, and knowing that we're in COVID, knowing that there is no hospitals that would be open,
my
we'd have
God.
to drive 3 hours to Johannesburg.
So it would have been high risk.
Yeah,
in some
everything high
regard
risk,
anyway.
not just for the child, but for us,
Yeah.
for her.
Mhm.
Like it was. I thought maybe the twins would help save the marriage, but looking at the pros and cons,
There was no saving it.
I don't think there was any saving, and to bring children into that situation.
That's a real. I think I'd like to believe that our generation is a little bit more aware that having children doesn't save a relationship that's
Yeah.
already failing.
Yeah,
It's as Jim Gaffigan put it once, it's like you're drowning and you're calling for help and somebody hands you a baby.
hmm
It's not like they throw you a life preserver. They hand you a baby as you're drowning.
Yeah.
That's not the direct analogy. He was referring to having 4 kids and adding a 5th, but I think it works in terms of we're having a failing relationship. We're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
We're not bonding, but yeah, let's go ahead and bring another life form.
and let's try to bond ourselves on it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's that. I get this will fix it, but it doesn't. I
No.
just want to make sure the listener knows it doesn't
Yeah.
fix it. Okay, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that story. That's some heavy shit, man. And this all only happened, we're in 2024, so this all was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That when was the divorce finalized?
The divorce files on February 13th is when
Another 13th.
when she sent the papers, and it got finalized in June. Of
And
that
were you
year.
married in South Africa, or are you married
Yeah.
stateside? Like
married
marriage was-
in South Africa?
Okay.
Yeah, we got through the visa process, everything. Like we spent thousands of dollars. We spent over $10,000 to get me
Jesus Christ.
married over there.
Oh, that's another big chunk of money that you got to eat.
Yeah.
In
Well,
addition,
we weren't expecting
at least
COVID.
you guys didn't litigate, because it's like divorce is expensive when you have to litigate. But it sounds like you spent all the money.
There was nothing
regardless.
to split. We were
No
both
money.
we were both bankrupt. I mean, essentially, we got rid of all our savings, so it wasn't like anything. The only thing she now says is I owe her $15,000 for the whole thing because she paid for it.
Maybe she can go in and try and collect with those Canadian Mounties that are
Yeah.
coming after you,
Exactly.
and they'll have just as much luck
Yeah,
going out of their jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah. Just means I can't travel to South Africa again, but it's not a big deal.
Oh man, that's really okay. So 3rd time's the charm, right,
Yeah.
Anthony? Like we're
Oh,
gonna get it
I'm
right.
ready.
This no.
Absolutely.
Are you? So have you started dating again? What does it look like being 3 years now removed from the second divorce? Like,
Yeah.
being single, pursuing relationships or not? What is that?
Well, let me tell you what happened after the divorce. I moved to San Diego. I moved to San Diego to get work for there. I didn't want a divorce. So November is when I left. When emergency flights opened up, I said I can get some work, and I got some work in San Diego.
Mhm.
She approved it. I moved to San Diego. We weren't going to divorce, because
Mhm.
I said she didn't serve me until February 13th. So let me get some work. Let me send the money over to South Africa.
Mhm.
Everything was, and she served the divorce papers on February 13th, and that crushed and destroyed me.
Yeah.
And I literally wanted to die. I literally wanted to commit suicide.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with my life, and it was that day
What about it made you feel like, what did you lose hope? Were you
Yeah.
angry again? Were you like, how
no,
is this
I lost
possible?
hope this time. There was no anger.
Yeah.
It was I don't want to be here anymore. This heartbreak is too hard.
Yeah.
I can't. Am I this unlovable? Am I this person
Yeah, man.
who can't support his family? Am I a person who is absolutely a failure in everything I did?
This is relatable shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had 2 choices. I had one choice, and I'm going to tell you how I dealt with this. As you talked about earlier, people who have addictions, so we went through things. Is I did a DMT trip,
Mm-hmm.
and I said I've been studying this for 10 years, and I know that if you do a DMT breakthrough, that's equivalent to dying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said I have one choice here. It's either kill myself physically or kill myself spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see God, and I did DMT and broke through immediately, and it completely cured everything.
That's great.
I came back, no toxic voice, no nothing, and I was able to deal with with everything.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, my therapist, he's he does not question anybody's use of psychotherapy, you know, or hallucinogens or psychoactives to treat depression, to treat suicidal, ideation and things like that.
Yeah.
The body of research coming out. I have divorced friends and people that are on their sobriety journeys, and it seems weird to go on a sobriety journey and use chemicals to kind of like help, but like ketamine therapy has been huge for those people to really get an objective view of yourself, to step outside. There's a quote, I can't remember the author, but the thought, I want to kill myself, or I hate myself. There are two people speaking there. There's the I, and then there's the self.
Yeah.
You're not referring yourself as I in this situation. So figure out what is separating I from myself.
Yeah.
What is that barrier? And I think the idea with the hallucinogens, with the psychoactives, is to break that barrier, or to remove one of those parties, so that you're only looking at the true you, the authentic you.
That's correct.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did a lot of study on it, and I'm a very supporter.
Yeah,
I went around for 2 years
mm-hmm.
Researching it and finding people, finding psychologists and neurologists and people who are in the field who are doing the treatments and supporting them, and completely getting into the subcultures and finding out that they've been doing this for quite a long time, healing lots of people who have had bipolar disorders or schizophrenia, and bring them out to being normal again.
Right.
So you'd think it'd be bad to give that to a schizophrenic, but it turns out that it brings them back to reality, because it shatters whatever their old paradigm
mm-hmm.
is, and they're able to collect a new paradigm and actually start living life normal again. So I know that it helps mental disorders, mental illness, and of course it can get abused. I mean, it can definitely be abused. But in my experience and what I've seen in my life and other people, it's been so supportive, so healthy, and so like I am myself again.
Yeah, the idea of, yes, anything can be abused. I think the interesting thing about the psychoactives and the hallucinogenic therapy is that they are trying to break cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Those drugs are snapping you out of patterns and circular thinking. So it's hard to become addicted to them when these things are trying to get you out of a pattern.
That's correct.
They're trying to eliminate unhealthy coping and get you to be okay with yourself without the substance.
Yeah.
So this is great. We haven't really touched on psychoactive therapy, and but I'm glad that you had a really good experience and that you're alive here with us today. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you were having those thoughts. You hit the DMT trip. What's life like after that? What do you all of a sudden, like, women coming out of the woodwork, like, what's going on, Anthony? Or was it just kind of like, I'm okay with me?
I'm okay with me, and I'm not ready for anybody else to come into my life. And it has been like that even to this present time. I look, I go on a dating site, or I go to an event, and I start talking to girls, and then just as I know that I can jump that layer, and just like, hey, would you want to go on a date?
Yeah, you can go to the romantic.
Yeah, go right there. I'm like, immediately my heart goes, I'm like, oh, okay, nope, not ready yet.
What do you take that to mean? Is that
I'm
fear,
not ready?
That you're not ready?
Yeah, not fear, because I definitely could go, because I got to that point.
Yeah, you're not afraid of going to that level.
It's that I realize that I'm not ready to go to that level. And that's just a good self-reflection, because like after my first divorce, not even a year and a half, I was like already into relationships and everything, going straight into, dating someone, and then got married a year and a half later.
Yeah. Would you like, what was your dating life before your first marriage? Were you like a serial monogamist, or?
Yeah, I was serial monogamist. I was Christian. I completely had full, understanding of monogamy and
monogamy and courtship.
Yeah, courtship,
proper
and
dating rules.
Yeah. I mean,
abstinence.
Abstinence, I didn't do. I didn't do abstinence. Well, I gotta be honest. I figured out that
you got one up on me.
That King Solomon had 900 concubines and
Yeah.
300 wives, and Moses had 2 wives and 3 servants who he had sex with all the time, and David had
David
God's
was the
God's
worst
heart,
adulterer
and he
ever.
had the heart of God. So
and let me pause it while we're thumping Bibles. Let me pause it. That David and Jonathan, I think,
yeah, I'm sure they got
he's
him.
bisexual.
I'm sure he was bisexual. I'm sure that Jonathan was his lover.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah.
So I learned that probably very early in my I was a pastor. I learned that pretty early in the church side, and judgment side. Yeah, if they found out that I was
sleeping
around
with other
with
people,
other people, that might not have reflected well on me. But then I also worked as a pastor during the day, and I was a VIP bouncer.
Gigolo. Oh, okay, no.
Yeah, close. VIP bouncer at the hottest nightclub ever at night.
Oh,
So they would see me during the day at pastor, and then they'd see me at night at the VIP club at night as the bouncer at the VIP club.
and it's like, what are you doing at the club? No, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing at the club? Yeah.
It's like, well, you were praying with your eyes open. Well, you would only know that if your eyes were open while you were praying. So it's like the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme where like Charlie and Mac are staring at each other across the room and like, all right, you're not supposed to be here, but neither am I.
Exactly.
So,
Let's get going.
But right, we're just not going to say anything about this, right? Yeah.
But one of the breakthroughs of my deconstruction of Christianity was I realized that the religion actually wasn't teaching what Jesus actually spoke, and so I was teaching love and acceptance, love and grace, and that you can be yourself, and if you enjoy going to the club, then go to the club.
Yeah.
I didn't even swear. I'm going to tell you the truth. I didn't swear until my second divorce. I didn't start swearing.
Yeah.
I never said a curse word. I could not say fuck. I could not say.
Yeah, you would fuck, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't say fuck.
Yeah, I wouldn't say fuck. But now I can say fuck, and I'm like, I say fuck a lot. But even then, like I went to, people would know me as not as a dual person, but I'd have my foot in the world, and my foot in the spiritual side, because I understood that being yourself was more important.
It was a pretty. Jesus was himself. So
yeah,
if you want
to
to model that.
But he hung around with tax collectors,
and
prostitutes,
whores, yeah.
and I mean, think about this, guys. He was with. If you think about who Jesus' life was, who he hung around with, he wasn't as what religious would say pure,
right?
Because he associated with those people,
yeah.
And even if he didn't do anything, he was still associated with them,
right? He wasn't hanging out with the people who were the most morally upstanding
Correct.
or wealthy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I learned this early in my Christian ministry, and we pioneered grace movement and love wins, and what's called Christian Universalism.
Yeah.
That came out of my dad and my church.
Were you what would that be, like Episcopalian?
The Universalism is a little bit different. Though we figured there is no denomination that was doing this.
Methodists and Episcopalian, I've noticed, are the most affirming.
Yeah,
like in terms of being,
they definitely opened it up
to other religions, to the LGBTQ community. To all that. So this wasn't a particular denomination, though.
No, we created our own called Grace Movement.
Okay,
and during that
this isn't
time,
going to dox you in any way, right? Nobody's going to trace it back and go like, I know who Anthony is.
Oh yeah, if someone does know who I am, it's okay.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. But the big issue is that you talk about dating. I was pretty slutty in there from the 20 to 30.
Okay.
I probably my number count was in the hundreds.
Okay, humble brag.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Working a VIP VIP thing, and then having the girl find out you're a pastor kind of was an attractive thing for women. They kind of had this thing to corrupt the pastor.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can see that being somebody's something. That's somebody's kink. Definitely. If it wasn't before, it is now.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Now I was just curious because as you're talking about relationships now, I wondered if it was very much like I married the first girl that I dated or whatever it was, but that was not the case.
No.
You have sown your wild oats.
Mm-hmm.
You have tested yourself in marital relationships, and now you're just like, I need a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just until I'm in the point where I need to be, I'm
And there's no
stable.
fulfillment in the casual
No,
interaction.
in
either.
fact, because
you're
of this,
steering away from that as well.
probably because of psychedelic,
Right.
it actually showed me that just having casual relationship with someone produces a trauma bond, which you can't. It's hard to cut that.
Sure.
Cut it
You're
out.
sharing. I think that's critical, and something that as people who have had a hoe phase, okay, let's call it what it is. As people who've had a hoe phase, I think a little while throughout that hoe phase, you start to realize you are sharing energy. No matter how you want to describe that energy, how spiritual you want to get about it, that energy is being shared.
Mm-hmm.
And if you aren't in a place where you're looking to grow together, you're still kind of stuck with that energy. You're still kind of carrying around that person, and you aren't entirely sure that you wanted it.
Yeah.
You wanted the sex, but did you want to carry around that person? Did you want to carry around me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that it is something to be sensitive to, and I think it's I relate as somebody who had a hoe phase and dated lots of people after my divorce. It was there was a moment where I'm like, you know what? I don't know if this is fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't feel better.
Yeah.
I feel validated in the moment, and then I go back to my life and I go like, oh man, what if I just had a stronger no, or something to that effect. And that's no disrespect to any woman that I've dated. It is just to say, like, if the connection's not there, if there's I don't know, you can spread yourself a little too thin, and find it very unfulfilling in the end.
Well, I also find that I've loved very deeply, and so even having a casual thing, I had something here in the last 4 months, which is like a friends with benefits type situation, but she wasn't all healthy. She was bipolar in her ways, and something happened where she had to go back to her hometown. She was in San Diego now. She's back in her hometown, and I literally felt that she was killed or she was dead or because it was this.
You were connected.
I was connected to her,
sharing,
and now I can't hear from her. And I find myself texting like, "Are you alive? How is everything going?" I'm like, "What the heck is going on with me?"
Yeah.
Like, of course she's okay. Like she went home. Like why am I? And it's just because that casual thing put me more into a love point than anything else. And that's a sacred love that was not meant for her.
Right.
It was meant for who I'm going to be with in the future, if there is any future with that. I mean, that's also
I really like we had a guest on last episode who very similar. He's on a sobriety journey, and it's like, no, I'm cool with me, and if the right one presents themselves, great, but it's not something I need to go and actively pursue and look for. I need to be cool with me. And I am. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're very much I'm secure with where I am, who I am, and I know when I see something that's not the right fit, when it's not for me, right? Yeah. I think that's really, I don't know, as I talk to people on this show and outside of the show, and look at myself, I was very much like, I went through a divorce. I should probably go have relationships like immediately, right? And then not really having the space to really get okay with yourself.
Yeah, one of the bad advices I think people got, they said, once you fall off the horse, get back on again. And I think that's really bad advice when it comes to relationships because, you're still dealing with whatever that hurt was, and you're going straight into a relationship and you're bringing that hurt in, and they might bond with that hurt, and now you're in a trauma bond with a new person. Yeah, you're not in a relationship with them. You're
So let me get more specific, because this is a question I typically ask and I forgot already. But what are you going to do to make sure that you don't repeat the mistakes of those two marriages in your future relationship?
Definitely date them for longer than a year.
I mean, let's everybody write that down. Everybody listening, write that one down. That's a good one. Let's start there. I think that's a very safe bet. Anything else? But I think that's strong. You're off to a great start if
Yeah.
you're going to implement that change.
Yeah, and then the first is that you need to be very secure in yourself. You need to be understanding that there is no love greater than the love for yourself, and you don't need anyone else to love you. And once you find out that you can live and be yourself and love yourself and do what you want without worrying about what other people think, what people feel, and become your authentic self, then you're ready
Yeah.
to share and receive
And
and
grow.
give as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because usually what happens is you're not ready to give. You're just taking, and that doesn't.
You become an emotional vampire.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. And with that, is there we're doing great, but we've got a little bit of time left. I wanted to know if there's any closing thoughts you might have for somebody who's going through divorce, who's looking at their relationships and seeing a little bit of a mirror in your story.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you would share with them that might not have gotten said yet?
Yeah. So first is, if you're in a marriage,
Stop. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, you need to be open. You need an open book. You cannot have secrets, and that means that one of my secrets was I never showed my first wife, and I can admit this. That's why I said I'm not perfect on my social media, because she would criticize my social media because I was spiritual, and I'd have spiritual talks, and she'd be like, but she thought I was talking to strangers about sex and love and stuff, because I wouldn't show her my social media. So if you're in a marriage, you need to be fully open. You're there for the full open, especially if you're in there for love. I mean, if you're in there for business or whatever, do what you want. An open relationship, do what you want. But if you're in a marriage for love and you want to be support, you need to be full open book. You can't have secrets. And I think we had this conversation last time we talked that, you're going to have to now show, your Instagram and things. And you need to remove, if she says, I don't want that person, you remove that person.
That's been yes, what we talked about is, kind of my own social media usage and going through that with my partner and learning the big shift for me with that, if I can piggyback, is learning to say, well, my partner set this boundary for me, and saying, we set this boundary. Yeah. This is also my boundary.
We set this, correct.
And that's a new challenge for me to kind of wrap my head around. But I think it's critical.
Yeah.
If you're looking at being in the growth space, if you're being in a goal-oriented relationship where you want to move forward, you want to be together.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Continue.
And then the other thing is...
you moved away from the mic.
The other thing is to be open to that whole... the concept of marriage is that you have to understand that you're there to support each other. And so when you look at the person you're with, it can't just be someone you're going to give and just give and give and give and give. They also have to be reciprocal in some fashion, in some way. So you need to have that conversation. You can't just go and say, oh, everything's love. Everything's just going to work out. You actually certainly have to actually face your fears and tell this person, because the person might say, no, I don't want that. And the relationship will break.
Yeah.
And so you need to be fully open to that relationship. Marriage is not for the easy. It's not easy.
That if I can try and summarize this in a platitude, love is not enough.
Right.
It really isn't. And my partner and I know that we're committed. We are in love, and we know, having been married and divorced, both of us, that it takes a lot more than just being in love, and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of vulnerability, and I hear everything. I think that's 100% correct. Anything else, Anthony?
No, that's those things. I mean, there's a lot more, but
Sure.
very, very, very simple. Be open. Make sure that you have the proper conversation with that person of your goals and dreams, and then, like you said, it's a we, not an I.
Yeah.
At that moment, because it's when two come together, they are one. Yeah. And it is very complicated in discarded. So
yeah, Anthony, you shared a lot. Time flew by, and we are coming up to the end. I want to thank you for your vulnerability, I'm glad you're here with us today. You made it through the dark times and
Mm-hmm.
you've had your breakthroughs, and I see nothing but success in your future relationships.
Oh, I just want to also say to everybody who's going through this, you can get through it.
Yep.
It's not the end.
There is a morning after.
There is a morning after this. It gets darkest before the dawn, and the dawn is coming.
Yeah. It is the second worst trauma anybody will go through, and you will get through it.
And I went through it twice.
There you go. And you're still here.
I'm still here, and I still have hope, and still have love, and still have everything.
And maybe we'll get a sponsor that does psychoactive therapy, and we'll drop a little phone number for you all later to investigate. But definitely take care of yourself. Anthony, thanks once again.
Thank you.
My name is Will, and this has been What's Leaving and What's Left. Good day. What's Leaving and What's Left is written, produced, and hosted by William. Nothing the host or guests say should be construed as legal or psychiatric advice, so please, lawyer up and get therapy. Thank you so much for listening. Please continue to listen, like, subscribe, and share with a friend you believe may benefit from this story.